Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to the third and final installment of my celebration and exploration of Tristram Cary's music to the Daleks Master Plan, our current favorite classic Doctor Who story. So we've spent 2 videos now going through 8 episodes worth of music. As you can see, Cary had to prepare a lot for this 12-episode epic, and considering that music could simply have been repeated if director Douglas Camfield had wanted to, there's a lot of original music here, a lot of one-off music as we talked about, and we'll definitely see more in these final 4 episodes. As you know, the first 4 episodes were space epic. We got 2 more space epic episodes, and then we got Christmas and New Year's, and we're going to have some more adventures in time and space, a sort of chase part 2, with the Daleks pursuing the Doctor, Sarah, and Stephen. And for that reason, we're going to get more idiosyncratic, distinctive music for certainly the next 2 episodes. And so let's begin at once with episode 9. All right, here we go with episode 9, another sadly missing episode, but we are going to get one more existing episode in this set. As we're about to discover, the Dr. Sarah and Stephen land in ancient Egypt during the building of the pyramids. Logically enough, the music had to change, much like it did for Christmas. And so let's see what Tristram Cary came up with. Reprise of episode 8, the Daleks sending a time machine after the TARDIS crew.
Conquest is a shot! Conquest! 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 Conquest!
Opening music for the episode. Lovely English horn, I think, in the lead. As you can hear, we heard the TARDIS materializing, but the music actually continued there, and we get the entirety of it. This is a track called Ancient Egypt on the CD. There's 2 tracks within that single CD track, and this is 27 seconds worth of music that we heard to introduce the story.
Why should they choose to wait and face us?
That's part B of Ancient Egypt.
How long is it going to take you to mend the lock, Doctor?
And another complete track, 18 seconds worth there. Setting the stage rather nicely, rather simply. Obviously, all acoustic music for both of those first 2 tracks.
If the monk's TARDIS lands this side of the pyramid, we should see it easily, however it disguises itself.
Of course, we're remembering that last episode the meddling monk appeared, and we expect correctly that he's going to be on their track.
No!
Of course, that's just the sound effect for the Dalek time machine. We actually heard that at the very beginning of the episode taking off, and that was it landing. Well, Tristram Cary actually created a track called Dalek Time Machine, and it was clearly meant to be sound effects, and of course it's unused. You might be able to tell, you experienced watchers, that they simply reused the sound effect from the chase. And that makes obviously good sense. Let's check out Cary's version of the Dalek Time Machine. certainly fits the bill and would have, of course, been just fine right there. But like I say, why not have a little continuity? Us nerds certainly appreciate that sort of thing. That was a brief iteration of a track called The Overseer and the Captain. Sarah and Stephen have just left the Doctor alone at the TARDIS to continue his work, but he's been observed by an Egyptian, well, actually, slave. They run off to report it. And so, well, the Doctor and friends might be in some trouble now. We're going to hear that track again, but not in this episode.
Anyway, let's take a look. Daleks.
I knew we should have tried to get back to Kemble.
It's a bit late for that now.
Lovely brief conclete track there. Daleks at the pyramids. We just hear 7 seconds of that 17-second track. Again, it fades out as dialogue continues. It could reasonably have continued if it wanted to, but
Take him away.
Stephen and Sarah are captured,
More of them.
but they run into the Daleks.
Seize them.
And Daleks versus Egyptians begin.
Exterminate the creatures.
And of course, the Daleks totally overwhelm them. This is not totally clear. This is actually a hybrid track, although you can hear lots of acoustic instruments here, drums as well as the winds and so on. But they've been treated, it's a little easier to hear on the isolated track. I was talking last episode about certain foundational tracks that might not be altered, and then other tracks would be altered and intermingled on one track. There we go. And so that's another great example of that, and used for an ancient scenario. But with the Daleks involved, there's got to be some outer space weirdness, and there was.
Exterminate them on sight.
And that was the briefest utterance of the Victim 3. You may remember that that was heard in episode 8 twice, and it's a little bit longer. It has 2 stings in a row. And in episode 8, we heard them both. Here we just heard the first one, and that was all that was needed, so it was faded out before the second sting within the Victim 3 could be heard.
Sarah. Stephen. Here.
The Doctor searching. Bit of musical indulgence. Over 1 minute of music with no dialogue. That is actually the sound of the monk's TARDIS landing. I don't remember that they used that same sound in episode 8, but well, there it is. Useful to distinguish it from the Daleks' time machine, of course. And although that sound effect takes over, the track, The Doctor Searching, has actually come to an end there, and it was sort of receding into the back naturally. Not surprisingly, as the monk lands, we're going to get a reprise of his music. So that's the second of 2 iterations of the monk's music. We, of course, heard that when he was introduced in episode 8. Both times the 12-second track is complete, and rightfully so.
Who was it landed here before then? Daleks.
Sorry, Bill.
Not even the old man.
The Egyptians believe Stephen and Sarah are
Then
thieves.
why did he exactly belongs to Pharaoh?
A short sting there to punctuate the end of that set of dialogue. The scene actually continues. It's from a 3-part track called Escape. Part A has 8 seconds, and of course that was the whole thing. Now the Doctor's going to play a little trick, turning the monk's TARDIS eventually into the shape of a police box. And at the end of this, we're going to get Escape Part B, another short little acoustic sting with one interesting little quirk. There was, in fact, piano in that track. There's the obvious Episode 7 Hollywood silent movie music. This is one of 2 tracks that actually use regular old acoustic piano. Not very clear, as I said, in that track. So for fun, I'll play it for you and you can hear the piano hopefully a little better. It's still kind of in the background. You can hear it more in the lower register. But yeah, there's actual piano there. Curious. Since this is in the same recording session, I wonder if they had a way to adapt a regular piano and turn it into that tack piano sound. Maybe they did. They probably didn't have a specialized instrument that was only tack piano, but I honestly don't know. If any of you all know, let me know. I'd be very curious. Well done, Sarah. She's freed them.
Come on.
And more fighting music. Escape C. Nice grinding cello underneath there. Track fades out there. We actually get 35 seconds worth. The track is 1:23. It obviously was overmade just to be sure. Cary believed usually in trying to make more rather than less, just in case, to give directors options and a bit of flexibility. And so it was expected that tracks wouldn't necessarily be used to the full, although we've heard several so far in this episode alone. But this particular one got under half of the track. Oh well, them's the breaks. Lower register, piano. That track was called The Missing TARDIS. Another sadly underused track. We got about 18 seconds there, and the total track is 50 seconds. So episode 9's Egypt music included the piano for 2 tracks. Because this was done in the same recording session as episode 7, it sort of helped justify the pianist's presence in the recording session. I mean, obviously the silent movie music, I think, makes up for it just fine, but it gave the pianist something else to do, and hey, I'm all for that. The Doctor realizes that the TARDIS has been taken into the tomb, and that's the name of this next track, The Tomb.
You're wasting your time. You won't get in. Doctor.
And the Doctor and the monk are about to have a little mini confrontation, a very civilized one. And that, in fact, is the end of the music for episode 9. We got 33 seconds worth of The Tomb, and we're going to hear it some more in the next episode. We got 13 cues in episode 9 and quite a lot of complete music. That is fairly exceptional. And a little bit of piano music, a bit of a surprise there. But also a lot of single-use tracks. As many as 8 of the 13 cues are just used one time. So episode 9, as you see, introduced a very different character of music yet again in this crazy odyssey of a story. So that's that. Let's move on straight away to episode 10. All right, off we go to episode 10, the second of 2 existing episodes that has existed since the mid-80s, the other being episode 5. And of course, this is the last existing episode we will be able to see for now. So, more adventures in ancient Egypt and more unique music from Tristram Cary. So, off we go directly. And actually, with no reprise, we're going to get the opening track, and it's a moderately familiar one if you watched last episode. It's The Tomb. This is in fact the longest version of it. We get almost the entire track, 51 of 54 seconds in this opening titles and introductory music. Continues to set the scene.
Doctor! No doctor.
Perhaps he's inside.
You can just hear a sort of concluding gong and chord there. I don't remember if there's any more significant music after that, but it's kind of like the end. It's a little bit of a pity. Probably could have let it go to the end and it would have been okay, but oh well. One thing we got a hint of at the end of the last episode was the doctor put the monk into some bother, and we're about to see what happened with a track, The Mummy.
Well, thank goodness for that.
So you might be able to hear actually another hybrid track, and this is a similar type to one I spoke of in the last video. There's both natural bending of instruments like glissandos. Cellos are very good at that because you just slide along the strings. The timpani is very good at that because there's an actual foot pedal where you press to raise the pitch and lower to lower the pitch, and you can move it while you're playing and bend the pitch, and it always sounds a little weird and creepy. And so both of those things happen there, but there's also some background conclette type sounds. As some of you know, Cary knew how to write music for mummies with some of his Hammer horror movie credits. Still to come, I think.
The doctor's the only one with a key.
Coming up as a possible spot for a unused track. There's a 3-part track called From Egypt to the Ice Planet. Parts B and C are used in the program. A very short 4-second A track is unused. And I had a little fish around and tried to figure out where this track might have ended up. And I feel like it might have gone at the end of this scene, linking the end of the monk's line with the Daleks and Chen searching for their fugitives. So, well, I'll try and reconstruct it and see how it fits.
Come on, we'll find him.
That's what I'm worried about.
Oh. You can see it's lighthearted in its tone. My guess is it's possible that it was to be fitted there, but, well, who can say?
We must take the men and go on.
No.
We're about to get part B of From Egypt to the Ice Planet.
See, we do not have long to wait.
Another of director Camfield's celebrated transitions. That was a 14-second track. We actually got only 9 seconds there. It faded out fairly quickly, but is a rather nice transition, I think, and supports that striking visual swap between the sun and the dome of a Dalek.
I should go now, Doctor, before the Daleks change their minds.
And after quite a lot of new music over the last episode and a half, we're going to get an old friend.
One Dalek is capable of exterminating all.
Yay, the triumphant return of Sting 1.
My men will soon destroy them. Come!
And the final iteration of The Tomb. Its shortest version, 25 seconds there. And the Egyptians are preparing to attack, which won't go so well for them. And another brief version of the Overseer and the Captain. We heard that in episode 9. An even shorter version than that. We got 10 seconds there. The total track is actually 29 seconds, so we really don't get that much. Well, a lot of the time, music does cut out for dialogue. That may have been the reason Camfield elected to fade things out at that moment. Oh, there's the Terranium handed over.
Smash the wall machine! Smash up the
And another reprise, Daleks versus Egyptians, the same battle music we heard in episode 9. With the existing episode, actually, you can hear the audio of it much better, so I'll shut up for a second. The drums almost seem separate, like they're conclets, bent, not necessarily distorted. More grinding cello in the background. Both that and the utterance in episode 9 are complete. That track is 1 minute, 1 second of carnage and melee, and we get the whole thing both times.
You have done well. Patrol, return to the time machine. We must leave for Kemble at once.
One of those Daleks needs some
So I hope the
WD-40.
Daleks don't catch the monk.
They have
And we have one final track in this episode. We're going to see what has happened to the monk without his directional unit and his TARDIS. Pretty much the opposite of the planet Tygus from episode 8. Some plaintive flute or maybe even a piccolo. And that is From Egypt to the Ice Planet, Part C. And we get 23 of 32 seconds there. Most of it, but again, it fades out to allow space for dialogue. And that is episode 10. Only 8 cues in this episode. Not as many original tracks because, for example, The Tomb was reused from episode 9, as well as Daleks versus Egyptians, The Overseer and the Captain. So several tracks from episode 9 obviously made perfect sense to be reused in episode 10. And of course, we also had a return of our old friend Sting 1 from episode 1. And like in episode 9, we had one unused track that could have fitted in, but we don't really miss it. All right, that's that. We're now headed for 2 episodes of exciting climax. Let's go right on to episode 11. All right, we're continuing on to episode 11 and our return to the planet Kemble for this and the massively climactic final episode. We will discover that this is kind of a slow burn. I don't mean that pejoratively at all. I really quite like this episode. We will theorize why Camfield might not have requested very much music from Tristram Cary. So let's see what's happening with this episode. Off we go.
We've got to try it.
They've got to try it. And as they do, the TARDIS seems to
Very well, my boy.
burst into flame or something. And our opening music is... I think you know that one by now. It's our final reprise of Requiem for Katerina from episode 4.
I call for a sense motion.
And it sounds like we get a reprise of alien table pounding, as we saw in episode 2.
Silence!
Sorry.
You have been dwarfed. Whoa! This violates the agreement by which this council was assembled.
Council in Uproar, another hybrid track of weird warbling instruments and bendiness and so on. Calling for Chen's death. You can just hear a little final warbling over the death throes of whoever that was, Giron, I think. So, Council in Uproar, as a minute 5 seconds worth, we get only half of that. Again, extra was provided just in case, but about half of it, 32 seconds, was used for that chaotic scene.
Where is your co-ruler, the Dalek Supreme? He was...
Chen is holding court like he owns the place and then discovers that not only the Daleks have gone, but the place is barred. He has a huge ego, so he doesn't let that stop him. I include this scene only because there is one final unused track in Cary's Master Plan soundtrack. On the CD, it's called The Core. And perhaps it was meant for one of these conference scenes, but it obviously not only wasn't used, but I can't actually figure out where exactly it would have gone. It's 17 seconds long, and well, let me share it with you. Obviously very concrète. I don't know, sort of an extended sting, you might say. A real build-up and grinding tension there at the end. Yeah, I'm not sure where that was supposed to go.
The galactic representatives have been detained as you instructed. Commence invasion countdown!
Yes, it's one final utterance of Sting 1. It was a well-loved track. It got many chances to be reheard. And, well, I salute you.
Come on.
This appears to be the reception area. We never heard sound effect background before. This is the Dalek City background effect from the original Dalek story. God, I love that.
We've got to find him.
Now Stephen and Sarah come upon the Dalek control room. We recognize those noises.
This place is empty too.
Listen!
Stephen and Sarah come across the imprisoned delegates with Dalek City corridor noise in the background.
Kingdom, you've done well. Now let us out of here. No.
What do you mean, no?
Where is the doctor?
The delegates promise to go back to their galaxies and warn everybody. Bless Stephen and Sarah.
Yes, let's hope they'll be in time.
As the ships start to take off. including Mavic Chen's apparently. This now marks about 8.5 minutes of no music at all. That's not so surprising when, as I pointed out, many of the scenes that happened since Sting 1 have included either Dalek corridor noise or Dalek control room noise. And it's sort of understandable not to want to crowd the aural background with music as well as these atmospheric sound effects. So I can understand why there's no music here. And apart from the track The Core, nothing appears to have been lost. So that, we must assume, is intentional.
What about the others?
But we do get some music before the end. One more track.
Jen's taking his time to get off.
There he goes. No!
Something's gone wrong.
A musique concrète track called Master of the Universe.
Let's hope that the others can mobilize fast enough. Well, there must be something we can do.
Yes. Find the doctor. What?
Listen.
The doctor?
No!
They take cover as a Dalek comes by. Hear the music a little better.
They're still here.
We must follow it. Quickly!
And as that track fades out, that's the end of the music of episode 11. We are about to see someone we know very well has somehow survived the explosion of his spaceship. Oh, sorry, I may have given it away there. But that last track, Master of the Universe, is actually quite interesting because for the first time, I've been able to detect a kind of loop in many other episodes where music was used a little bit more freely. Sometimes edits of shorter tracks were cut and pasted together to make a longer track. Well, sort of the reverse happened here. If you listen to the complete 53-second track, those sort of electronic drum beats, those kind of punches, get more and more intense. And apparently that was not what was needed for the scene in Camfield's mind. I first knew something unusual was going on because the track was 53 seconds on the CD, and there was 57 seconds of music heard in the episode. So I knew something funny had gone on, and I managed to figure it out. We get the first 20 seconds of the track. Now, some of that is obscured by the explosion. It kind of starts during it. And then we get the track almost starting again, and we get 40 more seconds of the track. So out of the 53 seconds, we get 42 seconds total discrete music. But we actually hear 57 seconds because of this edit that was made to extend the less intense portion of the track. Interesting. First time in 11 episodes that Camfield elected to manipulate the music in this way. Either he just played it from the beginning, for the most part, he played it from the beginning and, well, there it was. It ended when he wanted it to, or it wasn't used in some rare cases. But here's a case of actual editing to fit the portions that he liked into the scene the way he wanted. And as I say, that is the end of episode 11. We had a mere 4 cues in this entire episode. The smallest amount of music in all 12 episodes. In fact, this episode is basically completely concrète, including the Hybrid Council in Uproar track. So we're headed into the exciting and thrilling finale, episode 12. And so let's waste no time. Off we go. All right, we've made it to the end, and what an end it's going to be. Well, I have to say, if only one episode would ever be found again, I don't think I'm alone in saying that episode 12 would be the one I'd want. There's a lot to like about all the individual episodes, but there's so much visually interesting about this episode that we can't see without some educated guesses. Interestingly, for my purposes, this episode has something in common with episode 7. And that is, the music heard in episode 12 is completely unique to this episode. There are no reprises from earlier episodes. Although, there will be some reuses in later stories, which I've already documented in some of my other videos. But at least in terms of Master Plan itself, these are all brand new tracks that we will hear. So I can't wait. Let's go.
No, I am alive.
Yes, in case you didn't know, it's Mavic Chen, still alive despite his spaceship exploding.
Lead the way.
Devious bastard.
Of course.
And new music for the titles called The Heart of the Mountain. Which basically is the track Terranium with some extra fun added. Sort of restarts there. Obviously recycling, but in a new way.
Take care, Kingdom. I could easily forego the pleasure of giving you to the Daleks. I could kill you myself.
Why did you come back? This couldn't have been planned.
That should be a slightly familiar track, Growing Menace, which featured both in Power of the Daleks and the Moon Base. It's one of 2 tracks with that honor. Victim 3, if I remember rightly, is the other one. And in fact, we're going to get a little less of it here than we got in the Moon Base. 1 minute 30 of the 2 minute 9 second track. Let's hear some more.
Where is the old man? The one you call the Doctor?
We were looking for you.
Yes, of course. And that's why you came here. Now do stop this masquerade.
Actually, some similar conclette type sounds to Master of the Universe from episode 11.
The Doctor's always fought the Daleks. Why would you believe us? We don't know where he is.
I obey.
Chen has been escorting Stephen and Sarah to the Daleks, but the Daleks intercede, and what's this?
Until you realize that these people are my prisoners, I shall refuse to hand them over.
I will verify my orders.
Good. Yes, that's City Music 1 from the Daleks. A strange aberration that, it would seem, Camfield requested that Cary provide something that he hadn't recorded for this scene. Most unusual that Cary was asked to reuse something not just from a previous episode of Master Plan, but a previous score of his. Very strange. But, well, Camfield was in charge.
There is still no proof that the Doctor is here.
Whatever else is thought about you,
Starts up again.
one cannot help but admire the way you both continue with your absurd bluff.
Now, as we head into the devastating climax, we're actually going to get a ton, almost an unprecedented amount of music. But it's all going to be of the hybrid concrète type. There will be some tracks where you can hear the low tones of a cello being bowed. You can sometimes hear the flutters of flute or oboe. At first, I was willing to believe that these final tracks were totally electronic. They aren't. He used some of his instruments to record tracks that he would manipulate. Possibly unique for Doctor Who. And actually, unique, I think, for Tristram Cary's output in the show. I mean, yes, he used gongs to make the Daleks soundtrack, so I guess technically you could say that's the essence of concrète. But so many of the hybrid tracks in Master Plan use the instruments in a still identifiable way. They're still essentially a flute. They're still essentially a cello. They're still essentially drums, etc., etc. At first, it's so easy to overlook the acoustic instruments that have been morphed, as well as true, I guess, for lack of a better term, concrète sounds in these final tracks. I bring this up because the final three tracks, the Time Destructor, the Destruction of Time, and Daleks Disintegrate, are all of these hybrid types. And the first two I mentioned, Cary provided over 5 minutes in a single track of these wild sounds. We will hear wind build up and all kinds of chaotic noises that slowly build towards the end of the episode. They're actually just remarkable. They're absolutely remarkable. We're going to hear them for quite long periods. And, well, I'll point them out. But I kind of wanted to let you know what you're about to hear, at least through my microphone, so that you know how much music there is for the last 20 or so minutes of the episode. So off we go.
Once again, I, Mavic Chen, Guardian of the Solar System, have helped the Daleks with their conquest plan.
Our alliance has ended.
What? But I have helped you time and time again with your absurd incompetence.
The Time Destructor.
I, Mavic Chen, will decide when the alliance is at an end. You, Dalek Supreme, tell them that they take their orders from me.
This version of the track is easier to hear because there's much less extra sound effects added.
I assume that this silence means that the orders have been passed. Failure to obey the orders of your ruler brings only one reward.
Take him away and exterminate him, but do not fire in here.
You cannot turn against me. I, Mavic Chen, first ruler of the universe, am immortal.
Pursue and exterminate in safe area.
This music is unbelievable. It just is. The Doctor.
Don't say anything. Just do what I tell you. Take that.
What, the key to the TARDIS?
Yes. Going to activate the Time Destructor.
You will save your fight against your ruler. No! You cannot.
And that's the end of a 2-minute, 42-second continuous track of the Time Destructor, right from the beginning, without pause, without skip. And it's just a wonderful soundscape. Obviously, we're missing so much visually. Whatever angles of implacable Daleks or egotistical Mavic Chen, the music is just spellbinding to me.
I'm sure they're coming back.
Ah, that's it.
The Doctor activates the Time Destructor. Music has started again.
All of you.
Much harder to
I'm
hear
afraid you're too late.
because of the sound effects.
Time Destructor is activated.
Now we have the grinding, clicking, ticking mechanism of the Time Destructor, but the music is back there.
Yes, it would kill us.
You can sort of hear those
But you would
wee
totally
kind of sounds.
destroy your equipment. And if you disobey me, I can accelerate it.
Do what he says.
All right.
can't speak.
Now, both of you, back to the TARDIS. Not you, Doctor. Do as I say.
Wait, Stephen. We can't just leave him.
Whatever he's doing because he thinks it's the best way. Now, come on!
It's still there. A little easier to hear over that Stephen and Sarah scene. Well, now you can't hear anything, but it's still grinding back there.
What are you doing here?
I came to help you.
Hurry, my child, hurry!
Just there is where the second version of the Time Destructor ends. We heard a little bit more there. The track omits the first few seconds, but then lasts longer. We actually get 3 minutes, 2 seconds of the track in that second cue there, which makes a total of 3 minutes, 5 seconds heard. Most of it heard twice, but a little bit at the end of that second scene, if you can hear through all the extra sound effect chaos. That's what we get out of 5 minutes, 14 seconds of this track. Once again, Cary providing more than enough music in this case. Kenfield could have just about stopped the tape and then just continued the music from there, but there was a chance that the track might have run out, so this was for sure the safer route. And, well, there was in fact 5 minutes 44 seconds of music heard, and so yeah, the track would have run out, so this was the safest thing to do.
Sarah!
After a brief respite, this is a new track, The Destruction of Time. It's a low cello sound. It's one of the foundational tracks there.
There's one thing I do know about this machine.
It's almost impossible to hear the music underneath this dialogue and sound effects, but it is there. You can hear it start, and it does continue. Oh, that was a brief version. Excuse me, Daleks. That was a brief version. The first cue that uses the destruction of time is just 38 seconds. You can hear it start, but you really can't hear it, as I said. But we're going to hear it again. And there it's back again. You can sometimes hear a kind of woo, and I believe that's the cello foundation there.
It's not far now.
Sarah is aging.
The Daleks must be after us by now.
Ah. That is another acoustic instrument altered for the track. I'm pretty sure. So this second version of Destruction of Time is 1 minute 12 seconds. It omits the first 11 seconds and then carries on from there. So yes, it was very difficult to hear, but we did actually hear some new music in that cue. And we are about to get almost 4 minutes of continuous Cary music. Some of that wind sound, I think, is extra sound effects, but some of it is Cary's music as well. This is getting bad. The Time Destructor is aging everybody and destroying Kemble. Finally, you can hear the music because we're in the TARDIS.
Doctor! Sarah! Sarah!
Stephen realizes we've lost Sarah. Again, the music is still there. It's so hard to hear.
Come on, Doctor.
Don't touch me.
I'll help you.
Get back to the set.
Away from the time destructor, we can hear the music a little better. Very clear there. You can hear a little bit better the real instruments being used.
Thanks so much, friend. By chance, you reversed the time destruction.
We actually just heard the track to the end. It's sort of a minor miracle. We got to hear the entire 5-minute, 19-second track over those 3 iterations. Most of it obviously, heard in the last cue, which was almost 4 minutes. And it basically begins where the previous cue ended, which is most of the reason why we hear the whole thing. So we ended up hearing a total of 5 minutes, 45 seconds of that track. But again, because of certain reiterations, that's why we're hearing more than the complete track. We've got one more track to go as we see the Daleks get everything they deserve. Daleks Disintegrate. Also reused in Power of the Daleks, Episode 1. They try to destroy the time destructor. Right. The music here is a little bit more forward. You can hear it more clearly. Oh.
Nothing but dust.
Daleks Disintegrate is just heard the one time, and we almost get the whole thing. It's 1 minute 28 of 1 minute 38. So it just fades out there at the end. A splendid sound, and as I mentioned, reused in the next Dalek story. Wow. So that is episode 12, and that is the Daleks Master Plan. Let's wrap up our adventure with some information for you. We had 9 cues in episode 12, as I mentioned, all brand new music. 4 tracks used singly. The first 3, that included city music, the reprise from the original Dalek story, and that final track was used just the once. But for the first time, like with Master of the Universe from episode 11, there was editing of tracks to fit scenes. And this is much more common in some of the other stories that I've examined. For the most part, in Master Plan, they just pressed play and let it go. Even the Conquête tracks didn't need manipulation to fit scenes to Camfield's satisfaction. So perhaps it's a little more understandable for these longer scenes, which needed insurance, I guess you could say. But at least as regards the track, The Destruction of Time, we got the whole thing. And so that was pretty cool. All right, so some final totals to tell you about. There were 118 cues over these 12 episodes. There were 84 total tracks that Cary created, and 78 were used. That's very good. That's an excellent ratio, for sure. That totaled 55 minutes, 28 seconds. So we got nearly an hour of original Cary music. Obviously, that makes sense because of how long it was, but still rather remarkable, the length and breadth of this soundtrack. And as we heard, we had three basic varieties of track. We had 45 that were acoustic. We had 24 that were concrète, for lack of a better term, pure concrète. And we had 15 hybrid tracks, including those last three in episode 12, which are not obviously so, as I mentioned. We got 34 tracks used to their completion, also pretty good. And we got 52 tracks used once. The total amount of discrete music used in the Daleks Master Plan was 40 minutes, 59 seconds. That's about 3/4 of the soundtrack. And again, it seems to me, based on some other stories that I've studied, that Cary's batting average was very high. The music he created was used, and there was relatively little that was left on the cutting room floor. And so that's, well, darn good and darn successful, and so worth your effort. If you can possibly find the CD, good luck to you. But if you can find these tracks and enjoy them for the tremendous music that they are, I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey of wonderful avant-garde electronic music from Tristram Cary. See you next time. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. And, well, until next time, bye.